Welcome to the Daily Dope Show. My name is Brandon Strong, and I am your friendly guy. Just a regular guy making commentary about things I've seen in the news about the drug war, mostly about weed. This is the way it is, man. There's a lot of shit to talk about. I wish there was other things to talk about, but it's mostly weed. There is other things to talk about, but I ain't got time for that shit anymore. Can't talk about Duterte. Can't talk about legalization because nobody's doing it this year. But we can talk about idiots like this. So you might have stumbled into this USA Today opinion piece by Jeff Hunt. Who is Jeff Hunt? Good question. Jeff Hunt is the Vice President of Public Policy at Colorado Christian University. So why does anybody care? Oh no, not again. Dude, don't lose my... Shh. Oh, I'm having a lot of trouble with USA Today. It's very touchy. So this guy, this Christian University guy, he decided to break out every little nuance of reefer madness that's been pushed in the modern day. You know, this isn't like, this isn't Harry Anslinger style reefer madness by any stretch, but this shit is the same shit we've been hearing over and over and over, and I'm just gonna fucking put it to rest once and for all. Let's just put this fucking shit to rest once and for all, okay? And of course, he starts out talking about Cory Booker introducing the Marijuana Justice Act in an effort to legalize marijuana across the nation and penalize local communities who want nothing to do with this dangerous drug. You know, everywhere where I've seen legalization happen, be it for medical reasons or for recreational reasons, every single time there's the option for the town to opt out. Every time. Even Colorado, even California, the most liberal states in the game. So I don't know where you're worried about. Maybe 10 years down the road, after everybody's legalized, places like that might just be like, all right, you know what? Fuck you. If you don't want marijuana in your town, too bad. It's market decides. Isn't that what Republicans are supposed to be like anyway? Let the market decide? Whatever happened to that shit? Whatever happened to small government? You guys, now all of a sudden Republicans are the big government party? Now that marijuana is about to be legalized in your town? Whatever. Anyway. This is the furthest reaching marijuana legalization effort to date, and it marks another sad moment in our nation's embrace of a drug that will have generational consequences. The country has long embraced the marijuana as its drug of choice. Behind alcohol, which is the number one drug of choice for Americans. Now you have... marijuana has been number two since at least the 60s, probably before that. Unless you want to throw in things like milk and sugar and tea and coffee, which are all drugs too. How about salt? Never even call that a drug, but you got pharmaceutical companies making billions of dollars a year pushing salt. Our country is facing a drug epidemic. Notice how he didn't say opioid right there? Because he just wants to make it sound like it's just a drug epidemic. For some reason, there's just a big problem with people doing drugs. Maybe, you know, this is so vague when said like that. But we know what he means. He means the opioid crisis. Legalizing recreational marijuana will do nothing that Senator Booker expects. We've heard many of these same promises in 2012 when Colorado legalized recreational marijuana. All right, and again, I did this with the Kevin Sabat article, and I'm going to do it to this one just real quick. I'm just going to say, people that are pushing for legalizing cannabis, We never said it's going to solve all the fucking problems of cannabis being a thing in society, which is mainly people still wanting to demonize it, mainly people still wanting to put people in jail over it, mainly people still wanting to use it as a tool to take the rights away from minority groups and activists. So there you have that. We can't do nothing about that. If you can get rid of all the penalties for it, even for people that are under 18, try to figure some other way to deal with it, we wouldn't have the problems that we do have with it. But one thing's for certain, you and all these other asshole prohibitionists are always doing, and I'm just fucking sick of it, quit tying cannabis to this opioid epidemic, when it is in fact a solution that you could use, or a tool in the shed of solutions to help you turn this crisis into something a little bit more manageable, which is what a fucking heroin addict could do with a little bit of cannabis. Or if you never wanted to prescribe, if you never wanted to get somebody to go down that opioid road, you could have started them out with cannabis instead of starting them out with oxycodone or Vicodin or whatever. In the years since Colorado has seen an increase, in the years since they legalized, Colorado has seen an increase in marijuana-related traffic deaths. We're going to go through this point by point and just finally put this shit to rest, man. So hey, Mr. Hunt, you're crazy with this. We're so sick of hearing about these marijuana driving-related deaths. And we know what you're doing. You're just continuing this false narrative so that we can actually see police enforcement kind of relinquish, the raids and the kicking in the doors and the arresting medical marijuana patients and stuff. They want to move from that to just like, okay, well, if we can do something like maybe give someone a ticket every time we catch them driving stoned, or even suspect them of driving stoned because these tests ain't reliable, we can just say, oh, we smell weed. Send you off to the lab. Next thing you know it, you got anything in your system at all. Well, you were driving stoned. Boom, off to jail you go with a DUI. I mean, I think that's what this is trying to lead to, in my opinion. Well, let's check out the facts. Here's an old article from August 8th. Actually, this is July 10th, so it is kind of old. But it's not the oldest one we'll see. Some of the data that they keep pulling out for their claims are basically based on some really old articles. This one right here, legal pot is not associated with increased traffic fatalities. This is Paul Armentano of the Normal, Assistant Director, Deputy Chair of National Normal. And this is an article called 3 New Studies That Bust Marijuana Myths. Federal traffic safety data refutes allegations that changes in marijuana's legal status has led to increased carnage on the roads. Investigators from the University of Texas, Austin recently evaluated crash fatality rates in Colorado and Washington pre- and post-legalization. They compared these rates to those of 8 control states that had not enacted any significant changes in their marijuana laws. Their finding appeared last month in the American Journal of Public Health. Quote, we found no significant association between recreational marijuana in Washington and Colorado and subsequent changes in motor vehicle fatality rates in the first 3 years after recreational marijuana legalization. That's the 3-year study there, buddy. So I don't know where you got your information from, but whatever bullshit it was, these guys are using real data. Maybe the data you're using is that AAA shit. Authors also reported no association between adult use marijuana legalization law and the total number of non-fatal crashes. Now, I think AAA's numbers relied on overall claims. Oh, come on, man. Any of these really study whether or not somebody was actually stoned while driving by any standards or any. There is no standards, so by any stretch of the imagination, we'll say, none of these collision reports or statistics rely on any kind of like testing of the drivers to see if they were actually any kind of intoxicated on cannabis, or if there's a combination of drugs, or if it was alcohol. None of that shit. All these numbers are just bare bones raw data of You know, like, oh, let's just see how many car crashes there are. Let's see how many fatalities there are. Let's see how many, you know, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, insurance claims was one of them. All right, so to those familiar with the available evidence, the findings were not surprising. In fact, a prior study published in the same journal in 2016 reported that the enactment of medical marijuana legalization laws was associated with a reduction in traffic fatalities compared to other states, particularly among drivers aged 25 to 44 years old. Overall, traffic fatalities have fallen significantly over the past 2 decades. During the same time, in that majority of the United States, the majority of the U.S. states have legalized marijuana for either medical or social use. In 1996, the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reported that there were an estimated 37,500 fatal crashes on the roadways. This total fell to under 30,000 by 2014. And if you want to go one step farther, how about the Washington Post article from February of 2015? Stone drivers are a lot safer than drunk ones. New federal data set. Well, duh. But it's this much. You know, this is the number here. We're 600 times safer, but really it's infinity safer, because how can you say 600 times zero? You know, there's 0 traffic fatalities associated with marijuana. So, I don't know, you know, like, I'm not a big fan of the Washington Post, but I'm not a big fan of people from Christian universities writing opinion pieces in a crazy-ass, you know, USA Today. Poison control calls and emergency room visits. Well, we've seen an increase of those, he says, too. You know, this is one of those things where you don't really hear them pull this one out of the hat too much. But when they do, they just kind of throw it in there with a bullet list and hope you just kind of skip right over that one, because that's just complete horse shit all the way. Poison control calls for cannabis? Well, let's see here. Colorado on marijuana. ER visits, poison control calls down, even as public consumption rates remain steady. Public health officials say research suggests public education is working. And this is February of 2017, so, you know, it's kind of recent. 3 years into the regulated sales of recreational cannabis, the Retail Marijuana Public Health Advisory Committee, there's one of those. So this is what regulations do for you. You actually have people that are analyzing this shit and looking at it and seeing what the hell is actually fucking going on. The current system where marijuana is illegal in a place like Kansas or some shit, you don't really have data like this being kept track of. I mean, like I said, man, you go to the courthouse and it's like the docket is full of marijuana cases. It's almost always possession or some kind of minor trafficking shit. So anyway, they say calls to poison control and marijuana-related emergency room visits are down, even though overall consumption of pot remains steady. Signs that the existing policy and education efforts may be working. Quote, I think that it speaks to a learning effect, Mike Van Dyke, chief of Colorado's Environmental Epidemiology, Occupational Health, and Toxicology branch, said, referring to the decline in ER visits and poison center calls. The public is really learning the message, if not from us, from their own experiences. I think what the message he's talking about is right here, the public is really learning the message. The message is that cannabis ain't toxic. So don't be calling no fucking poison control center when your dog eats a fucking brownie. Don't call the fucking vet. Don't take your kids to the ER. They got more important shit to worry about, like gunshots and heroin overdoses. So, yeah, the public is starting to get the message. Like, you know, this is not a thing, man. Nobody dies from this shit, ever. It's not toxic. Van Dyke is chairman of a 14-member committee, which on Tuesday released its second set of data around the public health effects of marijuana in Colorado. The first report, released in January of 2015 by a panel of doctors, scientists, and public health officials, contained what state officials describe as baseline data. You don't got baseline data before when it was like, marijuana ain't even legal at all. We're just going to arrest anybody we want willy-nilly. I don't think they wanted to keep records of anything going on then, because basically it was just a free-for-all for the cops. Quote, we are doing our best to study this closely and monitor what's going on. While maybe not apparent from this report, we are taking this evidence base and we're developing and we are using it to develop prevention campaigns, education campaigns. We are doing our best to implement an evidence-based policy. And then there's this, here's a bunch of data from it. Past month marijuana use among Colorado adults did not change from 2014 to 2015. However, the percentage of Coloradans who say they use cannabis, 13% and 17% according to two separate federal surveys, is higher than the national average of 8%. Now, the national average includes states like Utah and, places, just straight up Kentucky, where smoking marijuana will get you like 10 years in prison or some shit. So people aren't, they're not really taking surveys about it or even being honest about it when they do. The vast majority of past month marijuana users, 79%, choose to smoke their cannabis. The percentage of those who vaped or consumed edibles was 30% or 33% respectively. Respondent could also pick more than one method, by the way. And that little thing there shows you how, graduated voting systems are pretty cool. The past month marijuana use of Colorado adults in 2015 was the highest among Colorado males at 26%, those between 18 and 25, and 17% who identified as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or another sexual orientation at 37%. Marijuana use was also higher among gay, lesbian, or bisexual teens as opposed to those who identified as heterosexual. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so they found out a lot of shit, but let's see. Marijuana is not even Colorado adults' drug of choice. About 6% said they'd use marijuana daily or near daily. That compares to 16% for daily or near daily tobacco and 22% for alcohol. So like I've always said, marijuana is the second or third drug of choice for America, and it's been that way since the 60s there, dude. And there hasn't been no explosion of marijuana users, even in these other communities like who are oppressed people and have been known to have more problems with drugs or whatever. And I don't think when you talk about somebody that is a depressed person, for that matter, I don't think marijuana is something that you would say is one of those drugs that's harming them even more or whatever. Poison Center calls about marijuana exposure have been on the decline since 2015, and marijuana-related emergency room visits dropped between 2014 and 15, according to the report. Hospital data from 2016 was not yet available. 6% of women in Colorado use marijuana during their pregnancy, 2% points higher than the national average. And, so have you heard anything bad about any of that? No. 7.9% of adults with children between age of 1 and 14 kept marijuana in or around the home, according to the report. In 18% of those households, about 14,000 homes, marijuana was potentially unsafely stored. So you're not seeing any big emergencies happening because of that. And then the rest of it is all bullshit. Correlative study data bullshit that we don't really do here at the Daily Dope Show. But thank you for that. All right, back to this guy's bullshit. So then the marijuana black market has increased, not decreased in Colorado, was his next contention. You can analyze this from many, many different viewpoints, and you can say what you want about the black market or the gray market. They let people grow their own plants, so if you want to see a bartering market, there's one of those, and it's just it's what it is. But what you can definitely say is that it isn't a black market controlled by drug cartels in a foreign country who chop people's fucking heads off. That black market's gone. They packed their bags and went somewhere else, and they sell different shit now. They don't fuck with weed. So let's see what let's see what the westward stoners have to say about this. The state that has tried its best to crush the black market since legalization, slashing plant counts and upping black and gray market enforcement and unregulated medical and recreational grows. All of that home grow hatred and maturing cannabis industry has undoubtedly cut into black market sales. According to ArcView Market Research's latest study on the national cannabis industry, Colorado had the smallest rate of black market cannabis transactions by far compared to other states. Well, that's because they had a shitload of people buying weed legitimately at the store. Billions of dollars worth. At just 27% of the total spending, compare that to 51% rate in Washington and 49% in Oregon and 100% in prohibition states. Colorado's looking pretty clean. So, there's the other thing where people are saying, well, what about these people in Colorado that grow weed and then they take it to Nebraska or Oklahoma, or they take it to the East Coast where they can get that cheddar? And what I have to say about that is if you look at those states, again, black market activity hasn't really raised too much. But the violence around the black market marijuana activity has just gone down. And I didn't pull an article for that, but there is articles out there for that. Well, let's see what else has he got. And he's talking about numerous Colorado marijuana regulators have been indicted for corruption. Now, I kind of looked around for that. I found one article here out of the Detroit News about, ripe for corruption. So this looks at two cases, one in Colorado and one in Washington. In the case that has caught the U.S. Justice Department's attention, former Colorado marijuana enforcement officer Renee Rayton is accused of helping pot growers raise plants for illegal out-of-state sales. State investigators say the marijuana warehouse inspector quit her job last year and immediately went to work for the illegal pot ring, taking an $8,000 a month job. A June 7th indictment says Rayton told the pot growers that she could help them get legal through her contacts at the Colorado agency that oversees the marijuana industry. The indictment says Rayton had vast knowledge of marijuana regulations and must have been aware that other defendants in the case were growing pot illegally. Here's another thing about the Colorado black market and the gray market, or whatever the fuck you want to call either of them. Straight up, the regulations in Colorado are really stringent. I mean, the taxes are high. I just seen somebody text, tweeted a picture. Adam from DC, MJ, tweeted a picture of a receipt. I'm pretty sure it was Colorado. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Colorado. Maybe not. But if it wasn't, let's just say the prices aren't much different. But it was basically like $45 for an eighth. And that's pretty hard I think it was medical marijuana. Maybe I'm not. I should have just had my Twitter open too, but whatever. It was high, and it is high. Prices are high, but more importantly than that, is regulations are stringent. Like if you wanted to open up a pot business in Colorado, you need big time money because you need lawyers just to even tell you what you got to do. And then everything that you got to do, quote unquote, is going to cost thousands of dollars, sometimes $100,000 or more. So, yeah, this is an example of that. This is where somebody knows how to navigate the regulations and they got some people that aren't regulated, but they're doing really good at growing and they want to get brought into the fold. And she's just like, I can help you do it. But apparently that's corruption, and we can't stand for that. Michigan, if you want to find the corruption in the medical marijuana shit, look at Michigan. Their laws are such that you don't even have to worry about no window of time that you have to wait between when you're a lobbyist and when you own a marijuana business. Come on, man. It's just designed for corruption bullshit. So she's charged with conspiracy to illegally grow pot, and her attorney told the Associated Press she is innocent. And I think she is, man. I think this is bullshit going after people like that, calling it fucking corruption. You didn't call it corruption when you did it for your bankster buddy, or you got inside trading tips for Wall Street or whatever. So it's just just because it's marijuana, there's an extra layer of scrutiny on everything, and corruption is just a word that they actually put on stuff, and conspiracies and all this other shit. Words that they don't usually break out, because when they break those words out, they give you extra time in prison and extra fines and shit. In Washington, the state agency that regulates pot recently fired an employee who leased land to a prospective pot grower. Man, Detroit news too. It's like all these newspapers and mainstream media, they're fucking really, really bad about calling weed pot. And I mean, weed's pretty acceptable. I don't, people say, oh, why do you call your show the Daily Dope Show? And I'm not never call weed dope. You never will find me calling it dope. What the fuck? That's the stupidest thing ever. If anything, heroin is dope. But weed is not called dope ever. Don't get it twisted. But it shouldn't ever be called pot, even more so. All right, marijuana licensing specialist Grant Bolsky was leasing 225 acres to a marijuana entrepreneur for $2,800 a month. The spokesman review reported that violated Washington rules prohibiting state pot regulators from having financial stake in the business. He was not charged with a crime, as he shouldn't be. That wasn't that big of a deal, man. Come on. So, like I said again, over-scrutinizing. Yeah, I don't see any more of the corruption. That's all I found. Like, I scoured the internet to try to find this corruption that they were talking about, or that this guy's talking about. And I can only find those 2 cases, and one of them was in Washington. So the numerous Colorado regulators, maybe there's some that I didn't see, but even if there was, I mean, it wasn't like numerous. Numerous would be like a dozen by now. They've been legal for a while, dude, over 5 years. All right, in 2012, we were promised funds from the marijuana taxes. And our promised funds from the marijuana taxes would benefit our communities, particularly schools. Dr. Harry Bull, the superintendent of Cherry Creek Schools, one of the largest school districts in the state, said, so far the only thing that legalization of marijuana has brought to our schools has been marijuana. Well, that's a pretty bold statement, but I didn't look at that. I didn't touch that. And to me, I don't know, the schools that get the money and the way the money is divvied up or whatever isn't, you're acting like, oh, you said marijuana taxes was going to pay for all the shit we need to pay for the schools. I've done this in almost probably 10 videos. Like, dude, marijuana doesn't pay for all of it. And by the way, the reason all these schools are underfunded and shit is because all these states, every state, has given billionaires and corporations super ridiculous tax breaks above and beyond the federal government. Like, the federal government gives them tax breaks or whatever. They give them subsidies, so who cares about their tax breaks? The tax breaks I'm talking about are billions of dollars. And this blows holes in these state budgets. And now they don't have money for shit like pensions and schools, and they want to bust up unions over it and fucking pay teachers shit or fire them all. I don't even know what the fuck they're trying to do. And all this shit, it happens to everybody. Even police lose their pensions, but you don't see anybody getting pissed about it. Acting like, oh yeah, these people didn't deserve to get pensions, those cushy government jobs. But whatever, man. Whatever. You act like Kevin Sabat, like I had to talk about in his video, or his article. You don't get everything from marijuana tax. It doesn't pay for all those shortcomings. It doesn't have to. No one ever promised it to. So in fiscal year 2016, marijuana tax revenues resulted in $155 million plus like another almost million. The total tax revenue for Colorado was $13 billion blah blah blah. $13,327 million, but who cares? Yeah, big deal. That was only 1.1% of the total revenue. What did you think it was supposed to be? Did you think we were going to fucking double up your fucking revenue? I'm sick of everybody acting like marijuana is going to fix the roads and it's going to pave the bridges and open factories and give everybody jobs. It's going to help. All right, it's going to help with everything we said it would. It's not going to fucking change the world overnight either, especially the way people don't change. Costs of marijuana legalization and public awareness campaigns, law enforcement, healthcare treatment, addiction recovery, and preventative work is unknown cost to date. Well, let's go down the list one by one. Public awareness campaigns. You heard that last article. That guy's loving it. He's saying that the public awareness campaign has paid off in many ways. As in, people ain't rushing their fucking kids and dogs to the emergency room and CDC over like supposed overdoses because they got educated. Law enforcement doesn't have to do more work because of marijuana legalization. They have to do less. And we've heard this from every fucking police department in Colorado. Healthcare treatment. Don't know what that even means. Healthcare treatment for real? Medical marijuana, motherfucker, is making it so people don't have to take bullshit ass painkillers, and their, cancer medication is cut in half or even just gotten rid of. Seizure medications. This is all stuff that's saving the fuck out of money. So I don't know what healthcare treatment even means. Shut up, dude. Christian University fucking idiot. Addiction recovery. That's where you fucking make people lie to the judge and say that they're addicted to marijuana. And preventative work. What is that? Oh, you're trying to tell people to not smoke weed. And that costs money. Well, my recommendation there is just stop doing it. And you'll save that money. So, yeah, fuck off. So what about this tax thing, guys? Has it been worth it? Wow, look at that. Colorado uses $1.5 million in weed revenue to help the homeless. What's this article called? California's marijuana tax revenue now exceeds $500 million. The funds have been put to a wide range of uses, such as rebuilding infrastructure. In the 3.5 years since the state began allowing adults to purchase marijuana for recreational use, cannabis has contributed more than $500 million in tax revenue to both state and local coffers. That's according to a report released Wednesday by the Denver-based marijuana consultant firm VS Strategies. Based on data from Colorado Department of Revenue, the firm tabulated that cannabis-related taxes from 2014 through mid-2017 totaled $506 million. That includes taxes. All this shit that I've talked about, this tax money that these guys are sitting here on. Look at these guys. These guys are Americans who live in Colorado, and they're using this money for all sorts of great things. And guess what happened to this money before? Because as we've heard earlier, there isn't any more people smoking marijuana now than what did before legalization in Colorado. Where are they buying all the fucking weed from? Well, that would be Mexican drug cartels. And Geo Pete's. What happened to all that tax money? It got used to pay for people to cut people's fucking heads off, you idiot. So shut the fuck up about the goddamn taxes all the time. I'm so fucking sick of hearing about that. You see that fucking check right there, dipshit? That's fucking $500 million that the drug cartels didn't get to fucking cut heads off with and ship heroin to your fucking daughter. You Christian University fucking idiot. Christian University. Those two words shouldn't even be side by side. Because for university, you have to learn shit like science and shit. Don't the fucking Christians completely hate that shit because it basically proves their whole fucking everything they believe in is bullshit? And yeah, from time to time I might rant about that. That's my my unalienable right, that there wasn't no God that gave me that right. The only way I got the right to have that freedom of speech is because some fucking guy that has control over my life told me that I'm allowed to complain about the fucking bullshit as much as I want, and furthermore, I don't have to believe in any particular fucking God. The majority of the money has gone to fund K-12 education. Even with that, Colorado's education funding badly lags behind most of the rest of the country. Is that the fault of marijuana? I don't think so. It isn't the fault of marijuana taxes? No, probably not. Well, what would the fault of that be? Probably those tax breaks I was mentioning earlier. As a matter of fact, Hickenlooper, who's a Democrat, also gave a bunch of corporations big tax breaks when he got into office. It was almost like a payback for some kind of bribe or some shit. All right, so Amendment 64 requires that the first $40 million in tax revenue be allotted for school construction. And that's yearly, I believe. That's a lot of money, even though, you'll hear the naysayers, oh, but the school construction, they need hundreds of millions a year. Well, everybody do their fucking part, eh? And it's a noble cause. Do you want the future to be a bunch of dumb motherfuckers? I probably say motherfuckers too much. I'm sorry. This stuff really gets me, swearing a lot, in case you didn't notice by now. All right, the remainder of states' share of cannabis taxes help finance health care, health education, law enforcement, and substance abuse prevention and treatment programs. What did he say here? Addiction recovery? Okay, he's got that listed under the cost of marijuana legalization. One of the costs there was addiction recovery, because apparently he thinks that people are actually addicted to marijuana and have to go to recovery over it. So whatever, some chump change goes to help the prevention programs. That's awesome. Local governments, which tax marijuana separately from the state, have used their share of the funds in a variety of ways. Pueblo County, for example, used some of the cash to start what's believed to be the first cannabis tax-funded college scholarship program. Educating the public. In 2017, it distributed $420,000 among 210 students. So that's pretty fucking impressive right there, man. Are you pulling the rug out from under that awesome accolade that I just read? Because if you are, sir, you are a fucking asshole. I got no use for you. The Denver area of Edgewater, which has 6 marijuana dispensaries and a population of 5,300, has used its cannabis windfall to upgrade outdated infrastructure. That's what this whole country needs. And I don't mind saying that if cannabis can rebuild this country's infrastructure, let's do it, man. I'd be proud to say that I was a part of it. Cannabis taxes have generated more than $1.4 million for the city, which CBS Denver reports makes up to 20% of Edgewater's annual budget. Well, see, now when you were saying how, this is only 1% of the overall tax revenue pull for the whole state, yeah, that might be true, but look at this little town here. That's 20% of their budget. I probably don't like that because this is just facetious at this point, that you're pinching the people that are involved in the industry that hard to make it like 20% of your annual budget. But better than Ferguson, Missouri, who 40% of their budget was subsidized through arresting minorities and basically giving them bullshit-ass tickets. Marijuana sales in Colorado now regularly exceed $100 million on a monthly basis. And that's money that the government knows is there. And they're just like, well, anytime we need to, there it is. We can plan on using that. In 2016, total recreational and medical sales exceeded $1.3 billion. By comparison, corn, the state's most valuable non-psychoactive crop, was valued at $569 million. So we're almost 3 times more valuable than corn over here in Colorado. It's kind of mountainy and valley-y. Marijuana tax money has been used to improve a wide range of programs and services. Mason Tavert, a leading advocate for Amendment 64, who now works for VS Strategies, said in an email to HuffPost. Now, I like Mason how he basically says what I've been saying. This isn't the magic bullet to fix all your problems or whatever, but here you go. It is funding everything from school construction to substance abuse treatment to fighting homelessness. While it might not fix every school or help every person who needs it, it is having a significant and positive impact on our community. And that's basically better than what cannabis did before legalization, which was give the cops another reason to arrest people and suppress people and all this other stuff. We'll get to that in a minute. Under Amendment 64, local governments still have the power to ban marijuana sales. Colorado Springs, for instance, a city recovering from a massive budget shortfalls, does not allow for the sale of recreational weed and as such misses out on additional tax revenue. Boo-hoo. So, you make the bed, you have to sleep in it. Sorry, man. Meanwhile, these guys are sleeping in this bed. See that? That's fucking $500 million. Revenue raised since 2014. And they did the untold fortunes that are also just handed off to the police. They just give the police percentages here, percentages there, and it's all throughout the system, whether it be Colorado or somewhere where they tax medical marijuana. Everywhere where marijuana is taxed in this country right now, the cops get a nice little piece of the pie chart. It's just automatic give. So, I don't know what this guy's even talking about. Anyway. Yeah, this has turned out to be pretty long. So, Senator Booker stated his reason for legalizing marijuana is to reduce marijuana arrests happening so much in this country, targeting certain communities, poor communities, minority communities. It's a noble cause to seek to reduce incarceration rates among these communities, but legalizing marijuana has had the opposite effect. According to the Colorado Department of Public Safety, arrests in Colorado of Black and Latino youth for marijuana possession have increased 58% and 29% respectively after legalization. This means that Black and Latino youth are being arrested more for marijuana possession after it became legal. Well, what's going on there is that kids are getting caught smoking weed. It happens, and I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. And here's an article I pulled back in June of 2016. It's a little over a year ago. And you basically got to take it in it's just a continuation of the same old with the drug war. And when you see these spikes in the minority community, there's a whole range of theories as to what's going on here. But it is basically because the availability is more there, and people that are normally going to do it are just doing it more. And they're getting caught. People are calling the cops. The cops say they got to go, and someone calls them. Police do patrol more in neighborhoods of color, and they get a lot more calls to respond to in the neighborhoods of color. When the police show up and find kids illegally in possession of marijuana, they're obligated to do something about it. I would argue that we just need to stop enforcing marijuana laws. They were racist from the beginning, and they're, Nixon underscored the racial and I can say, government domination aspect of prohibition of it. So, I kind of agree with your point. It sucks that, the racial disparity is even getting worse now that, a white male adult that's 21 years or older isn't going to have to worry about getting a ticket for possession, where obviously that is something to worry about if you're a minor. Always. And especially if you're in these neighborhoods where, you'll find out in a minute, most of the dispensaries or places that you can buy cannabis are located in neighborhoods of color. Right here, furthermore, a vast majority of Colorado's marijuana businesses are concentrated in neighborhoods of color. Leaders from these communities, many of whom initially voted to legalize recreational marijuana, often speak out about the negative impacts of these businesses. We just stopped and goed. Anyway, So, you know, now we're talking about these neighborhoods where all the marijuana businesses are. That's another issue that should be addressed with a broader stroke, with a more a focus. Like something like this. This 24-hour greenhouse just right in the middle of town. Hey, I don't know. Recreational marijuana businesses have proliferated so rapidly in some of Denver's poorer neighborhoods during the past 2 years. The city officials are exploring ways to disperse future growth more evenly. And this article was out in January. I think I seen some kind of update where they got rid of a few of the things, like where you couldn't be so close to each other, and they lowered some tax rates in areas where it's more likely that people didn't want to be there because it was a little bit farther out of the way. So anyway, marijuana business owners say they've moved into parts of town that city regulations restrict them to be. They say they work hard at being responsible neighbors in ways that include local hiring and community outreach. Between navigating the zoning laws and finding amenable landlords willing to lease their properties to federally illegal businesses, the list of workable locations for marijuana dispensaries shrinks considerably. John Lord, owner and CEO of LiveWell, said. The Denver Post used city database of more than 600 marijuana business licenses to examine where industry growth has occurred and which neighborhoods face the biggest transformations. Facilities that grow recreational pot have concentrated along the I-70 corridor in the north and the Santa Fe Drive and I-25 corridors to the south, in neighborhoods where residential and light industrial areas mix. Other marijuana-related businesses, medical dispensaries, retail outlets, and marijuana-infused product factories have pocketed along thoroughfares such as Colfax Avenue, Federal Boulevard, and Broadway, the analysis shows, and neighborhoods that surround them. Many low-income neighborhoods are next to the industrial sites. That's just the lay of the land, said Charlie Brown. No bullshit. A former Denver city councilman who led committees that studied and recommended rules on where businesses could go. To change the rules today is tricky, he said. Now that's unfortunate. I hate when that happens. It seems like nothing can ever get changed in government once it's done. That's why it sucks that all these Republicans are doing such crazy shit right now in Washington. It's like, yeah, the Democrats are not famous for going in there and reforming anything that the fucking Republicans do when they go in there and shit all over everything. Anywho, neighborhood residents and business leaders say they've been concerned since the beginning that Colorado's new marijuana industry would settle into their backyards and that communities of color and lower incomes would see a disproportionate share of those businesses. Quote, you'd think we've borne our fair share already, said Candy DeBecca, a member of the Cross Community Coalition in Globeville and a longtime resident there. Her home in the family since her great-grandfather faces a large marijuana grow operation. With about one marijuana business for every 91 residents, the El Ria Swansea, Globeville, and West-Northwest Park Hill neighborhoods are tops among the areas the pot industry calls home, the data shows. Swansea has 78 licensed businesses, Globeville 24, and the western half of Northeast Park Hill 54, city records show. Denver's count of marijuana businesses is lower than the Post because the city does not separately count different licenses at the same address. Just a small note there. The highest concentration of marijuana shops compared to population in a single federal census tract, an area consists of about 1,500 households. Falls along the city's southern bit on either side of Santa Fe Drive corridor that mostly covers the Overland neighborhood with one marijuana license every 47 people who live there. The reason is partly from the many medicinal dispensaries that dot the western side of Broadway's Green Mile. I knew he had a lot, but the number of them is truly a surprise, said Councilman Jolyn Clark, who District 7 encompasses the area. We are seeing more data available now for us to study the issue better. It's become a very large industry, and the data can help us see if it's become what we wanted or not. The U.S. Census Bureau says the tract in Clark's district is about 70% minority, mostly Latino. The tracts that make up the Globeville and Swansea neighborhoods are even more so, with the latter 90% minority. So, while Denver's inner residential neighborhoods are largely devoid of the 633 marijuana businesses throughout the city, more than half of them grow houses. The lowest income areas, typically a mixed bag of industrial and residential buildings, have seen the most. This guy here says, Brooks again, he says, it creates an incredible concentration which has an effect on the quality of life, and that's a major concern, Brooks said. We can't let one industry run rugshod. I thought it was ruckshaw or whatever. But whatever, rugshod over that quality of life. What is this even talking about? I hear this here and there once in a while, and thank God my neighbors don't say that, like that I'm ruining their quality of life. Am I? I'm not too loud of a person, man. I try to keep my stuff to myself, and I don't know what he's talking about here. How does somebody's marijuana business ruin your quality of life? I need more details on that one, but whatever. The color of the neighborhood's residents doesn't figure into the formula of success, said Brian Rubin, co-owner of Starbuds. My best Starbuds locations are in white, affluent neighborhoods, namely the DU location and the Louisville location. He said, shops are located wherever the zoning and setbacks allow. That has everything to do with it, not targeting minorities. And I don't know, like I said, there's a lot of things you can say about it, but one of the things we found when you actually read into it, where is that? Here we go. Back to Paul Armentano. One thing's for sure is dispensaries are not crime magnets. So if they're in these areas, these that you say they're less affluent, and they're people of color, is the majority of the population. So, and you're also saying that those areas are normally high crime areas. At least that's what this guy over here from the Christian University said. So let's just check this out. Claims that marijuana retailers attract crime are unsupported by the available evidence. In fact, studies show just the opposite result. Most recently, data published by the Journal of Urban Economics reports that dispensary operators deter neighborhood crime. Researchers at the University of Southern California assessed the impact of dispensary closures on crime rates in the city of LA. Investigators identified an immediate increase in criminal activity, particularly property crime, larceny, and auto break-ins, in the areas where dispensary operations are forced to close, as compared to crime rates in the neighborhoods where marijuana retailers remain open for business. Anyway, there are no observed cross-sectional associations between the density of medical marijuana dispensaries and either violent or property crime rates in this study. The results suggest that the density of medical marijuana dispensaries may not be associated with crime rates, and other factors such as measures dispensaries take to reduce crime, i.e. doormen, video cameras, may increase guardianship such that it deters possibly motivated offenders. And whatever else. So, Senator Booker released his bill just a few days after the Washington Post reported on a study by the Review of Economics that found college students with access to recreational cannabis on average earn worse grades and fail classes at a higher rate. Getting off marijuana especially helped lower performing students who are at risk of dropping out. Since legalizing marijuana, Colorado's youth marijuana use rate is the highest in the nation, 74% higher than the national average, according to the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Report. Whew, that's a heavy shovel load of bullshit there, man. try to ease up on that, please. This whole thing about college students, and I couldn't find anything on that because there's nothing on that. That's complete 100% shit right out of a horse's ass. I don't know how to be more clear about that. There's just no way that that's true. By the way, I went to college. I graduated. I didn't graduate, but I got my 4-year degree. I had like a 3.9 something. Like it was almost a 4.0. I missed one class. Got kind of a shitty grade there. And, you know, other than that, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But study what? This study, there's no link to it. But whatever. I see that it was, you said the Washington Post reported on a study. So first of all, even if the study said something in it, I'm sure the Washington Post were totally shitting on it. Like, there's no way that any of this is anything I would believe. So let's check this out, though. Colorado's youth marijuana rate is the highest in the nation. Well, we go to the Denver Post because, you know, who would know better than them? And this is about a year old, but I've read the 2017 report, or not really read the report, but looked at 2017 articles about this subject, we'll say, and nobody said anything about any explosion of teen use in Colorado. 1 out of every 5 Colorado teens say they've used marijuana in the last month. But that rate has not increased since pot was legalized in the state and is in line with the national average, according to a new report from the health department. Among the other findings of the 2015 Healthy Kids Colorado survey released Monday, alcohol is the drug of choice among Colorado teens, with 30% of the kids surveyed saying they drank within the previous month. Oh, good news here. Cigarette use among teens is at an all-time low. That's great. Nearly 14% of Colorado teens say they have used pharmaceuticals without a prescription. Bummer, man. I hate to hear that, but guess what? That's below the national average. Both the percent of Colorado teens who have ever used cocaine or ecstasy, both at around 6%, is slightly higher than the national average. Marijuana finding is the second time the Healthy Kids Colorado survey, which is conducted every other year, has found flat pot use among Colorado teens despite post-legalization boom in marijuana commercialization. Did you hear that, Mr. Hunt? Did you hear that? Because what he just said there just annihilated your whole fucking bullshit about how Colorado's youth in this Rocky Mountain high intensity drug trafficking area report, which has been heavily debunked all over the internet and all over like mainstream media. It has been heavily debunked. Sorry. And if that's where you got all your information from, that's a sad day for you, because you just went off on a big tangent of bullshit. It's like you wanted to like show everybody how good you were at skiing, but you were just skiing down a mountain of bullshit. 2013 version of the survey found that 19.7% of teens had used marijuana in the past month, and 2015 version puts that number at 21.2%. So there's a little bump there. But Larry Wolk, the executive director of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, said the increase is not statistically significant, meaning it could wiggle in the data and not meaningfully increase. But in 2009, at the beginning of the state's boom in medical marijuana stores, the rate was 24.8. So whatever, it's still lower than that. Similarly, the rate of teens in Colorado who say they have ever used marijuana, even just once, has remained stable. In 2009, the rate was 42.6%, while it shrank to 36.9% in 2013, according to the survey. In 2015, it was 38%. Now, this is the you're saying that anybody that you ask any kid, like, yo, have you ever smoked weed? So that's going to be your biggest number, right? Colorado youth marijuana use rate is the highest in the nation, 74% higher than the national average. Well, you're acting like the national average is somewhere below 26% right off the bat. You're like, 74% higher than the national average. Your number is somewhere between, like, if the national average was 12% and marijuana youth use rate, that's not the same thing as, like, this question that I was just looking at. Like, have you ever used marijuana even just once? That's the question. And that's at 46. That shrank to 38 overall. All right, so that's at 38. At one time, it was 42.6. That was in the heyday of medical marijuana, but before recreational was legalized. And now, after recreational has been legalized, it's kind of like stabling off at a lower number, but not as low as it was before, but not that much different. Like just a little wiggle room here. So basically, nothing to really look at. It's just a non-starter, and it definitely ain't 74% higher than the national average. Because how could anything be that fucking high? What are you even talking about, man? So Wilk said, I'm heartened, and I think many folks are by the results. He added that the survey results reassure us that, at least for the time being, that there is no increase in youth use. A second national study, a long-time running Monitoring the Future survey, found last year that marijuana use among teens has more or less leveled out since 2010. In 2015, the survey found nationwide that 12% of 8th graders, 25% of 10th graders, and 35% of 12th graders had used marijuana in the past month. What more do you need to know, dude? The whole subject of teen use in Colorado is just a non-story altogether. So again, fuck off. So this whole thing is garbage, man. How'd they even publish this shit? I don't even know. So if Senator Booker is interested in serving poor and minority communities, legalizing marijuana is one of the worst decisions. Oh, God, no, it ain't. You want to know why that's wrong? Just go check out your local jail. Go check out your local court situation. When you go to the courts, we're not talking about Colorado. We're talking about anywhere, especially where prohibition is in full force. That's where you're going to find the most kids between 16 and 20 that are sitting there fucking waiting to go in and see the judge about some marijuana case. And that's going to be a dominant thing in the docket, and there's going to be more minorities than white kids sitting there waiting to fucking go see the judge. Legalizing marijuana all across the board and not making it a crime, period. Decriminalization, i.e., and for all ages, should not be a crime. I mean, why would we want some, I kind of agree with, I hate to agree with this douchebag, but I agree that increase in minority, teens getting charged with possession and shit like that, marijuana crimes, that shit's got to stop. It ain't going to stop because you tell the kids to stop doing it. It's going to stop because you stop fucking making it a crime. Figure out some other fucking way to make people be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that until I get a little older, or whatever the fuck you want them to do. I don't get it. I personally don't have any skin in the game because I started smoking weed when I was 9 years old. I don't have any skin in the game because I don't have any kids either. But I don't know what I would do, I'm sure I wouldn't want my kid to go to jail if he got caught smoking weed at any fucking age. So that should just be off the table. Cops should not be the ones enforcing laws to little kids. Unless they're out there robbing cars and, shooting people and burning fucking buildings down and shit. That's the kind of shit that, you go out and you send the cops that time. Anyway, he goes on, there is much work to be done to reduce incarceration and recidivism by not arresting them in the first place. Don't get them in the system. But he says flooding communities with drugs will do nothing but exacerbate the problems. The drugs you're talking about are already flooded in the community. They're there. They're flooded in there, and Big Pharma is partially responsible for that. The true impact of marijuana on our communities is just starting to be learned. The negative consequences of legalizing recreational marijuana will be felt for generations. I encourage... No, dude, the thing that was felt for generations is the fucking prohibition and how people lost their family got broken up. Whether it was somebody who was a father that got arrested for a marijuana crime that had to get taken away from his family. You have kids getting taken away from their fathers or mothers these days because of medical marijuana, and even in states where medical marijuana is legal. So that's just a slap in the face to people that are fighting the fight. You know, the negative consequences of prohibition has ruined millions of lives. And this is 80 years of this for marijuana. 80 years the prohibition of marijuana has been ruining lives. You know, you can say anything from prevented somebody from getting a college loan, gave somebody a criminal record with felony on the fucking, folder, so they couldn't get the good jobs and they had to live in the bad part of town and shit. Why do you think there is a bad part of town? Because the drug war created this shit. By design, the drug war created, a place where there could be a playground for this fucking activity. The government has been caught over the decades bringing the drugs in. The big drugs, the cocaine and the heroin. And, they bring in airplane fulls. And then they got their minions out there arresting people for little tiny bags. Little tiny bags like this big. This is like a Allen wrench. But yeah, you can have a bag like this. It's not that big. And you can have something in this bag that could get you 10 to 20 years in prison for a first offense. That's the kind of fucking thing the drug war does for us. It's unbelievable. So, the prohibition of all drugs is a big problem. It's been fucking families up for generations after generations. So that sentence there, you need to shove that one right up where the sun don't shine, dude. Church boy. I encourage Senator Booker to spend time with parents, educators, law enforcement, counselors, community leaders, pastors, and legislators before rushing to legalize marijuana nationally. No. You're talking about all the enemies of marijuana. And why are they the enemies of marijuana? Because to get to them positions that you just said, except for parents, or in a lot of cases educators, counselors can be stoners too, and the rest of them are people that really can't get ahead in the career field that they're pursuing unless they don't smoke marijuana. And that's a really big one. It's not even about whether they do drugs or not. But if they smoke marijuana, you're not going to get promoted in law enforcement, your legislator, pastors, community leaders, educators for the most part, in some cases counselors in some circles. So all the things that, you should go talk to all the people where they can't smoke marijuana. It's basically like a nun and a priest. Go talk to the nuns and the priests about, your sex addiction. Go figure it out. They'll help you. So he's telling Cory Booker to go talk to these people. Sure, I'm sure Cory Booker talks to those kind of people all the time. And every one of them tells him that they want him to legalize marijuana in New Jersey. Law enforcement, counselors, community leaders, pastors. I'm sure there's all those people I just mentioned that don't want him to, but there's those that do too. And why? We've seen the effects in our neighborhoods in Colorado, and there is nothing we wish upon the nation. Well, we've seen what happens in those same neighborhoods that you're talking about here, those minority communities, where, they see the police as an invading force, an occupying army in there that's the enemy. And marijuana is one of the main ones where when they pull up on you, they can just start fucking with you. If you smell like marijuana, they can no longer go ahead and search you in Colorado. That's not probable cause anymore, but that used to be a big deal. And reversing that was a big step in the right direction for all this argument that we're having about this shit. So every argument he's had is all horse shit. One more little thing from Armentano, little 3 things to kill the negative stereotypes about marijuana, the myths. The problematic increase in pot use, like a big rise in it, like there's even a problematic pot use situation as it is. So it claims that the passage of marijuana regulatory laws has been associated with an increase in rates of marijuana abuse, sometimes described as cannabis abuse disorder. Come on, what about alcohol abuse? No one ever talks about that, but that's a real thing, man. Cannabis abuse is like someone falls asleep and you don't have to worry about them anymore. So no significant change in the numbers there. Specifically, Columbia University researchers writing last month in the Journal of Addiction reported no associated increase in the prevalence of cannabis use disorder among either adolescents or adults in the years following the enactment of medical cannabis laws. They also reported no significant change in the prevalence of the past month marijuana use among adolescents or young adults ages 18 to 25 following legalization, a finding that is consistent with numerous prior studies. Can't say it enough to all the Kevin Sabatts and whatever this guy Hunt of the world that there just isn't nothing to back that up, where you're talking about this explosion of users. Like everybody's just going to start smoking weed if we legalize it. Didn't happen, ain't ever going to happen. You either smoked weed or you didn't smoke weed. Nothing's going to make you start smoking weed if you didn't before. Jeff Hunt, that's his name. So anyway, this is Skeptics, basically a website where they look into this kind of shit. And they all came to the same conclusions. Right. A good answer to this would be like, no. Yeah, they basically attack the whole article in here, and people give it different questions or different answers. Hell, I might even go in here and drop a copy of this video in there. It's going to be a long one. Shit. Yep, that was it. And there's one more thing to talk about in summary, we'll call it, since this is such a long report to file. And now we turn to the Cato Institute, which is a right-wing think tank. And if you don't believe me, the Cato Institute is a libertarian think tank founded by Charles G. Koch and funded by the Koch brothers. It is headquartered in Washington, D.C. The Cato Institute is an associate member of the State Policy Network, a web of right-wing think tanks in every state across the country. So, I take everything they say with a grain of salt, but they do these things. They're a think tank, so they look at what's actually going on, and they write little reports like this. So this is a policy analysis called Dose of Reality, the Effects of State Marijuana Legalization by these people on this date, September 16th, 2016. In November 2012, voters in the states of Colorado and Washington approved of ballot initiatives that legalize marijuana for recreational use. 2 years later, Alaska and Oregon followed suit. As many as 11 other states may consider similar measures in November of 2016 through either ballot initiative or legislative action. Supporters and opponents of such initiatives make numerous claims about state-level marijuana legalization. Advocates think legalization reduces crime, raises tax revenue, lowers criminal justice expenditures, improves public health, bolsters traffic safety, and stimulates the economy. A couple of those are a little over the top, but we'll say that, again, I would say I'm not going to make any of those bold claims, but I'll say it helps all that. It will help that greatly. Anyway, critics argue that legalization spurs marijuana and other drug or alcohol use, increase crime, diminishes traffic safety, harms public health, and lowers teen educational achievement. Systematic evaluation of these claims, however, has been largely absent. This paper assesses recent marijuana legalizations and related policies in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. Our conclusion is that state marijuana legalization has had minimal effect on marijuana use and related outcomes. We cannot rule out small effects of legalizations, and insignificant time has elapsed since the 4 initial legalizations to allow strong inference. On the basis of available data, however, we find little support for the stronger claims made by either opponents or advocates of legalization. The absence of significant adverse consequence is especially striking given the sometimes dire predictions made by legalization opponents. And that's all. That's all you need to know. Is whenever you see somebody out there yelling and screaming about how, it's going to do all this or it's going to do all that, more than likely they're just hyping up some bullshit. Because you know why? Marijuana's already been around for a long time, thousands of years that we know of. And in America, it's been pretty popular since at least the 60s. But you can go back before that and find other times and other places in this country where it was very popular. But for the most part, it really hasn't really, if it wasn't the focus of law enforcement for 80 years, it probably wouldn't be such a big deal. But now that it is a big deal, it's pretty cool. So thank you over there at the right-wing think tank for giving us a dose of reality. And that's all I got on this shit. I didn't know it was going to run this long to go through all that, but sometimes it's fun to do this, and I just really wanted to put this to bed, because for real, man, these are the same tired old bullshit arguments that we heard all through 2016. I made several videos about reefer madness leading up to the election and, subsequent legalization of the 8 out of 9 ballot measures. And it's like, I just turned blue in the face, man. So I wanted to go through point by point and nail this shit down. So Jeff Hunt, Vice President of Public Policy at Colorado Christian University. And you can follow him on Twitter. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah. Yep. That's pretty much, yeah. Oh, nice. Looks like I'll be able to drop a link here. He retweeted it from Denver. And let's see what people said. Hasn't the opioid crisis caused more devastation to America than any claim made by this article? Yup. He never mentioned opioid. He never gave it a name. He just said there's a drug crisis in this country, as if marijuana is part of that. So, yeah, he's just getting clowned. Yeah, how do we ever recover with all this tax revenue for schools? Taxes that pay for illegal meals, etc., not locals. I don't know what that is. That's, illegals meals. That's pretty whack right there to say something like that. But we know this is Twitter, so you're just going to run into that garbage. Try doing some research on medical cannabis at Jeff Hunt. Your ignorance on something you have no idea about is sickening. Opinionated article with questionable and biased facts. It's not an article. This is just a straight up op-ed. So, yeah, but you can question USA Today's quality moving forward. They've been garbage for a long time, bro. Would love to help educate both. I've seen miracles in 8 years working with the industry. Come by any CHC and ask for bud tenders to the stars. He seems as ignorant as Jeff Sessions does when he attempts to talk about the subject, uneducated on the subject clearly. And everything fact-checking, and it's all right there at drugpolicy.org. Fact-checking, it's a thing, but whatever. You're not going to get like I said, if the integrity of you know, USA Today wasn't something that you had a doubt about before. I mean, come on, they just let this thing go. Like, yeah, we'll go ahead and let this thing ride. For real, man. Give me a break. And this was retweeted by who? News 9 of Denver? Oh, come on, man. Maybe they were making fun of it. Or I don't know. It's hard to say, but I would say that the news here probably they probably should have just stayed away from this one. All right. Like I said, that's all I got for you, Jeff Hunt. Your bullshit opinion is very shared by very few, so I'm not really worried about it. But anyway, you can go fuck yourself.